with Shawn McCain again, as you can see, and we've been talking really about the idea of the liturgy. As Anglicans, we have this treasure, this Book of Common Prayer that is not just filled with words, but there is a subtext, there's an implied ceremony behind it that is, okay, it's an accordion, it's expandable, it can be added and subtracted from, but what is unique about Res Austin is that Shawn has moved it forward in terms of its ceremony. It's not a stripped down, deconstructed liturgy of just word and sacrament. There's actually a lot of ceremony. I mean, there were incense last night at the church, and then we've been talking about this, Shawn, and like I said previously, it is kind of countercultural, but you say that you have taken the time to explain this to people, and you have this course that you offer called, what was it?
The Liturgy Tour.
The Liturgy Tour, like the tour of the liturgy.
Yeah.
Okay. So explain that, and how popular could that be?
It's extremely well attended at our church. It's one of those enigmas that we're putting our finger on something there. We don't quite know what it is, but there's this curiosity in our culture, in our neighborhood, of the sacred,
right? Of
things that aren't disposable, aren't just going to pass with the next fad, but something that's been around. And especially within the context of faith, we've just seen a great deal of people responding to understanding what the symbolism, how and why we use our bodies the way we do, why the sign of the cross, why incense, why lay out the room the way we do. That's opened up avenues of faith for them. It's deepened their love of God. It's given them...
So be very specific.
Yeah.
What is this tour? I mean, when is it? How long is it? What do you do during this tour of the liturgy? This liturgy tour.
Yeah, so after the service, we take 2 hours. We'll order pizza in. We'll invite everyone to stay, and we'll have my team, my sacristan, and all the acolytes. They'll lay out. We'll put out a bunch of tables. They'll lay out everything. So it's a show and tell of all of the gear,
right.
Anything you can imagine. Everything's on display, and we begin with kind of an overview of like, why the liturgy? What is the liturgy?
Right.
Is it just our church that has a liturgy, or does everyone have a liturgy? Those kind of questions. And then we walk around the room and we tell stories about why we do the things that we do, where the kind of the drama of the gospel that unfolds not only in the concrete material things in the room, but also the way we use time and the way we use our bodies.
Right.
And the realities that we're entering into that we may not even see, like angels and archangels and all the hosts of heaven kinds of stuff. So for a lot of people, it's been eye-opening. It's been a really, and I don't mean to make it sound like this is a tool for discipleship. It certainly has that fruit. But we talk about it in terms of there will be no other time throughout the week in which you will come this close to reality. This is reality.
But you say it's not a tool for discipleship, but in fact it is. I mean, because if people understand the intent behind the ceremony, they'll get what the gospel is. What's happened though, as you know, in the church, and it's long checkered history on this, is that the church has fallen in love with the tools of liturgy and not taught the truth behind it.
Right.
So this liturgy tour is actually trying to do that. It's trying to teach the truth behind the tools. What's fascinating to me is that people come.
Me too.
Yeah.
I mean, I love it, but I look out and think, I'm not the only one that loves this. This is really helpful. And it is, I mean to say, it's not primarily a tool for discipleship, but it is such a powerful way of discipling people.
Right.
In another way, we do kind of mini liturgy tours is in the service. I know there are people who would have a heart attack if they heard that I called it a timeout and audible and explained parts of the liturgy. But we'll do that. And in fact, when I don't do it, our church will say, you need to do this. Yeah. And so like this last Sunday explained why we do the sign of the cross when the elements are elevated. And it was you can kind of see when you explain.
Well, wait. You just used 3 words here.
Sorry, right.
No. That sort of help people that are watching understand sign of the cross, okay?
Yeah.
Elements, and elevated. Those three things kind of peg you as a ceremonial Anglican, so to speak. But the other thing that's behind this, Shawn, and I just want you to be aware of it, and maybe I can tease it out of you, is what you just said implies to me that you are an intuitive leader, that you see as you lead the service, you say what you say, and then there's at some point where you are going to call an audible, and you'll stop, and you're listening to some inner check inside that says, they're not with me, they're not getting it. And I think that's a gift, and that is probably a real asset as you try and lead people on this ceremonial journey that you have. It's an intuition, and a lot of leaders don't have it. They just plow right through the liturgy and hope that people can catch up. But you want those people to be with you.
I've been in those liturgies, even maybe early on, where you feel like it's getting away from us, and you're leaving everybody in the dust, and something integral to worshiping as a congregation is lost. So there's a sensitivity to that, of wanting people to enter in. And so what are the things? What's the doormat I need to give them to enter in? What's that thing? And sometimes it just appears in different places in the liturgy, I think.
Yeah, and living now in as deeply skeptical a culture as we live in, and secular, there'll be more and more people who look at the church and say, what is it that they do behind those doors? And to basically put the welcome mat out, or open the doors, or raise the shades and say, look in, ask questions. It all has a fascinating history, and it all points to the gospel. So have you had people in your church who've been involved in this and said, nah, it's not for me. I want something a little bit more vanilla, or simple?
Honestly, I can only think of a couple of occasions where someone has said, this is a little too Catholic for us. And to that, I try to make sure sometimes that reaction can come, that needs to be inspected a little bit, because what people will write off as Catholic, we'll dig in a little bit and realize, well, that's biblical, actually. We're saying what's written in Scripture. So sometimes that needs to be parsed. But even so, as long as they're not throwing out the baby with the bathwater in some ways. If I could tell a story, there's, for instance, we use incense, and this was in Santa Cruz, and one of our church members, when we introduced the use of incense, said she left immediately. She couldn't handle it. So she went to the lobby. We went to the lobby and said, hey, what's going on? And after the service, and she was in tears, people were praying for her, and she said, that smell, it triggered a wound from my past. I grew up Catholic. I was abused. It's just a horrible story, and that smell, it just brought it all back. She said, if you use that ever again, I can't come to this church. So we said, well, let's pray about this.
That's a healing moment.
So we went and prayed about it for a week. I think it was a day or two later, she emailed us and said, I prayed about this. And not every situation would be like this, but this is just like a really fascinating situation. I prayed about this, and God said, incense pleases me. This is something that's going to be burning in heaven for all of eternity. So you better get used to it. But also, there was this invitation that he offered to her of, and this is the way forward for healing. And it became for her a way to face a wound and to open it to the Lord and say, do you want to heal this? And now she burns it in her house to remember the healing that God has given her. So there are sometimes those allergies to the things that we do. But I think in our culture that's so easily offended and desiring to be accommodated, that's one of the things we can do as a church, is be strange and really just be ourselves. And when we do that, there is naturally this confrontation that happens that I don't think we too quickly put that away sometimes. And that confrontation can often be the invitation of God to this person into a deeper relationship with himself. And to not be all the faith in the environment that you feel called to, because somehow it's offensive to someone, is to allow that person to set the agenda for the life of the church. So I just want to close with this one anecdote that might actually
seal the deal for some. It's kind of like a diamond in a setting, right? Mm-hmm. My wife and I were looking for a ring because she'd lost her engagement ring, and we went into the jeweler. We saw all kinds of things. There were, huge, expensive settings and tiny, tiny diamonds, and then, beautiful diamonds with very thin settings. And ultimately, what we wanted was something that would display a small diamond, but display the diamond with a setting that is appropriate and didn't overpower it. So when people look at the ring, they're looking at the diamond, not the setting. And I think that's the balance that Anglicans are always looking for. How can I present the gospel, the diamond, in a setting that will display it in all of its glory? And so that when it turns, its facets are, displayed for everyone. But as you know, the history of the church is sometimes the setting takes over the stone. And then it's a process of, re-engineering it. So
absolutely.
Shawn McCain at Res Austin, an amazing place, and I invite you to go to their website and see the kinds of things that they have. And if you're in Austin, give Shawn a call and come visit. I know they'd love to have you on a Sunday morning. And Shawn, again, thanks, and thanks for watching.